everybody. How are you on this rainy, voila, Saturday in New York? My goodness, I saw Noah going by my window. How are you? Well, this is an interesting show. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I have done this periodically where I have done little tidbits on other Met shows about my 1986 season with the Mets, how I hung out with them, became friendly with Bob Ojeda, and well, I'm going to give it to you. I It all started early 1984, where I went to this club with my friend, club called Shout, 43rd between Broadway and 6th, right down the corner from Nathan's. And it was a rainy night, and we had heard it was a hot club. So my friend and I, who was a casino junket rep at the time, it was probably about 10:30. We're walking out. He said, "It's still early enough. You want to go to Atlantic City?" He was going to get a limo. I said, "Yeah, right." So the head guy, which became my dear friend Jeff Green, is in front, and he says, "Take me with you," because he hears us talking. I said, "I thought this was a busy club." And he said, "Oh, it is. This is just a bad night. It's rain. People didn't come out. But, you know, plenty of girls and all that stuff." I said, "I'd work here for free for that." He said, "You want a job?" Gives me his beeper number. 3 days later, it's Halloween and I'm working. So I worked there for a while. Mets would come in and out, generally not on the days that I worked. I worked Wednesday and Thursday nights. The 1986 season, my first dealings with Bob Ojeda, he's taking his dance to a next level by taking his pants down. And I said, "Bobby, you have to put your pants up." I said, "The Mets going to win the World Series?" And he says, "Fuck yeah." From there would be pockets of Mets hanging out. Keith Hernandez is always with Ron Darling and Ed Lynch. Rick Aguilera would come in. I remember Rick Aguilera was like a Mormon. He didn't drink at all. Barry Lyons would hang out. So I became friendly with them to keep people away from them. Bob Ojeda, especially because I was dating a girl that was a Rockette, and Bobby liked a friend. So we became very friendly, Bobby and I. Actually went on double dates. So what happened was Ryan Sandberg, I remember one series, Ryan Sandberg and the Cubs were in. And the Shout was a hot club, 50s, 60s club. Also in Chicago, there was a jukebox club, which Jack, the owner of Shout, also owned the jukebox in Manhattan, a smaller bar that was opened on Sunday, Mondays, and Tuesdays. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Shout was open. Shout was the big club. Jukebox, same idea, 50s, 60s. You hear that? Mother Nature is calling. So, wow. Remember when you were young? God's bowling upstairs. Well, he must suck because it's all gutter balls. So, what happened was I started talking to Ryan Sandberg, and I became friendly with him. He was always with Leon Durham, so they were always together. And in fact, once in a while, I'd ask him for tickets, and Bobby always gave me tickets. And he'd say, "What's the matter? Bobby's not here," because Bobby Ojeda was friendly with Leon Durham. So it was just a crazy time. It was the mid 80s. Keith Hernandez used to love the nightlife. Keith, there was a snowstorm. Before the Mets won the World Series, probably January, February, before the season started. And I drove him home. Keith lived on 49th Street and 2nd Avenue, a big building on the corner, a luxury building. And he was pleasant enough. He wasn't the friendliest guy in the world, but we helped him, so obviously he's going to be nice to us. But it was just an amazing time. Doc Gooden and Strawberry came in not often, and other teams liked to come to Shout. But what I was saying was, because the jukebox that Jack had here in New York, there was also, I believe, a jukebox in Chicago. So evidently, Ryan Sandberg, they used to hang out there. So they found the club in New York that was much like it. For all I know, they could have thought the same owner owned it. But the players had a ball. And the 86 Mets were a trip. I mean, they were incredible. You have to remember, the 80s was a very zany time. Very zany time. When I was a bouncer, Diana Ross would come in, Gregory Hines, Matt Broderick. I've met so many stars there. Through Jeff, the head of security, played against Al Pacino softball in April '86, and we just that 1986, between playing ball with Al Pacino and meeting Matthew Modine, just Demi and Bruce Willis, it was magical. So the magic was back, at least in my life. I'm a 24-year-old guy, 25. You're in your mid-20s. Everyone had money in the 80s. I had a 300ZX. I was living my best life. And it was incredible. Every night was a party. I'll tell you, I never had a job that I looked more forward to going to than that Shout. I worked at the jukebox a couple of times. I worked with Omar Minaya. Omar worked at the jukebox. But I just was so excited about it. Every night was different. First of all, you met a girl. Girls love bouncers. So it wasn't a far stretch for someone to like you out of 1,500 people there, or 600, 700 girls. But the Mets were a different breed, because I did meet other players from other teams. But the Mets were the Mets. I remember Warner Wolf used to come in there. Davey Johnson missed a series that the Mets played in Houston. And they had said on the teleclip, I don't know if it was Fran Healy back then. Oh, okay. Thank you, Jose. Thank you very much. How you doing, man? I hope you're good. Thank you for coming in, of course, as always, and thank you for the information. It really does help me. It truly does. Today, the Mets, it's been moved to 305. It's still showing 405 on here. Now it's 305, yeah. I love when they say the Mets bring winning streak into, they won a game. Thank you, Jose. So the 86 Mets were a cut above. The other players that I dealt with, I'll name some: Leon Dorn and Ryan Sandberg. Ryan Sandberg was one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet. Now, Rhino must have been about 26 back then. He was younger than Keith. Keith must have been in 86, I'm guessing, 31, 30. Rhino was a little younger. Now, when I usually beat Bobby and, tell him, he'd always leave me tickets. One time I couldn't get a hold of him. So Rhino said, "You're going to sit with all the Cub wives because, and it's behind home plate." And I was sitting with Cub wives and Cub girlfriends. And I'm a Met fan. They were a Met hat. But they were very nice. The Cubs were very nice. The players were very, very nice. And the funny thing about players, um, they they're fairly intelligent. You would be surprised. Not that you're surprised that they're intelligent, but sometimes you read about football players getting jammed up and all that stuff. Baseball players, not so much. Baseball players, not so much. But the Cubs were, just a different group. Um, I remember Rhino was friends with Ray Fontenot, who was a pitcher. Jamie Moya came in. Jamie Moya was great. I believe Jamie Moya might have been from Seattle. He was a West Coast guy. I thought he was. Um, Ed Lynch went to the Cubs, in fact, I think. Steve Trout, Jody Davis was very nice. Steve Christmas was a backup catcher. Uh, he was like, not a kid either. He was probably in his 30s back then. But Rhino was probably, I think Rhino was probably 2 years older than me, maybe. I was 24. He's probably 26 or something. Because I remember, you could check me on this. Ryan Sandberg's birthday was in September because I remember he came in September 86. I don't know if the Mets were playing the Cubs. He was in New York. And I remember it was his 27th birthday. I remember that. He was with Manny Trio and Dad Bosley. Terry Francona as well. I think played for that team. He was very nice. But they had really nice, the Cubs just, maybe because I knew them, so it was easier for me to deal with them. Hey, well, because I knew the Cubs, I just seemed to meet them more. I think every time they were here. That's why. But that 86 Met team, the players were just a different breed. It was their city. I didn't meet a lot of Yankees, but the Mets loved the nightlife, and they loved Shout. Interesting thing, my son was out the other night at a bar in Manhattan and met someone who was very good friends, the family with Bob Ojeda. Vinny, my son, showed my picture, and they sent it to Bobby via cell phone, and Bobby got back to them and said, "Oh my God, Vinny from Shout, how's he doing? Blah, blah, blah. Give him my number." So I'm going to give Bob a call when I didn't get the number yet, but give him a call and would hope to hook up with him. The last time I saw Bobby was in the Citi Field parking lot, probably about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, 14 years ago, maybe. We were in the parking lot, and I saw him. And I said, he was with Gary Apple. And I said, "Hey, Bobby, you better come over. It's Vinny from Shout. If you don't come over here, I'm going to tell Gary what you used to do with Shout." He looks at Gary and says, "I better get over there." In the fifth inning, they used to leave Citi Field to go to the studios right near Radio City to do the SNY. They used to leave in the fifth inning to get to Manhattan. He told me he was on his way there. Actually, he offered me to go there with him. They had a car picking them up, but I had my car in the lot and everything. Bobby is a tremendous guy. I remember when Bobby had the accident with Tim Cruz. I spoke to him after he got out of the hospital. I think that might have been 88 or 89. Maybe 90. I don't even remember. But in spring training with Cleveland, a couple of guys got killed, I think. Bobby lost his hair, got scalped. That's why his hair, he had to have a weave, kind of. He lost the top layer. But Bobby, great guy. I remember Bobby showing me his finger when he cut his finger with a hedge clipper. His finger, he had it set like this. so he could grip the baseball because it was going to be fixed. He was going to lose the joint there. He had it fixed like this so he'd be able to throw again. And then he had it fixed when he retired. But, the Mets were characters. They were characters. I remember Tony Darling liked to party. Smoking, drinking, she liked to party. They had 18 Murray Street, her and Ronnie, at the time. They opened up this restaurant. 86 movie Top Gun, Platoon. Yeah. How about Ferris Bueller's Day Off? You forgot that one. 1985 and 86 had two of the greatest movies. Back to the Future in 85. Back to the Future, I remember going with my ex-girlfriend. It came out 4th of July weekend. She made me go, and I didn't want to go. It ended up being my favorite movie. Yeah, 4th of July weekend that came out. 85. 86, yeah, Top Gun. Ferris Bueller, I think, came out in 86. The music was great in 1986. You had a lot of British bands. That's what Friends are for. Remember, they used to play that at Shout. They used to put the video up. They had a big screen that they pulled down off the stage, big movie screen kind of, and they would play that We Are the World, and That's What Friends Are For, and Papa Don't Preach. They throw in some songs, even though it was a 50s, 60s club. Janet Jackson was getting big. Just great stuff. Berlin, Take My Breath Away. Toward the end, toward 1 a.m., the DJ Elliott would start playing some modern hits. Simple Minds, All the Things She Said, Papa Don't Preach, Nasty from Janet Jackson. A lot of things. 86 was just an amazing time. It really was. It was an unbelievable time because everyone did what they wanted. You could be who you wanted, and no one gave you shit for it. Crocodile Dundee. That was the only movie that you knew Paul Hogan from. Karate Kid Part 2 came out. Star Trek came out, right? 4 or 5. Back to School, Rodney Dangerfield classic. But Ferris Bueller. And then you had Aliens came out, right? Stand By Me. Yeah, you had so much great stuff. The mid-'80s was incredible culturally. And baseball took a step forward. Really did in the mid-'80s. You had just the Mets took over New York. The Wave was amazing. I'm going to show you something that you probably haven't seen in a long time. I'm going to lose my advertising for this, so I'm not going to get paid my $2 for this show. If this doesn't bring you back, I don't know what will. This was on every 7th inning.
Me and my friends go out into town. We can't sit still, we can't sit down. We don't like to fight and we don't like to scuffle.
Remember the 7th inning at Shea Stadium?
Doing the curly shuffle. Hey Mo, hey Mo.
Keith used to stand at first base and do this.
No, we never miss a chance. We get up and dance and do the curly.
ever notice, Brooklyn, you always bring up something negative?
Me and my friends love Larry.
You always bring up something negative, Brooklyn. I noticed that. You're a glass half empty guy. I can tell. You usually come in with something negative, and then you'll get better as the broadcast goes on. But it would be, what did you think of Trump's thing? What did you? It would always be, tell me the truth. Do you have some negativity, Brooklyn? Because it always seems like you start off with the negative and then get into a better mood as we go on. Just an observation, man. I might be totally wrong. Maybe you are a realist. You could be a realist. Hey, man, and that could be too. And that's a great thing. But yeah, crack out. I had my radio stolen. Remember the sleeves that you put your radio in the sleeve? It was a metal empty box in the middle of your dashboard, Brooklyn. I learned. And you know what they were robbing also? The little computers in your car, remember? They'd go through your Statue of Liberty Reagan. I don't remember that. Really? That I don't remember. But the little computer thing. Or if your side panel. The medication. Well, I don't take mine purposely when I want to freak out. That's funny, Brooklyn. No, it's not a knock. I notice you'll bring up negative stuff first, and then as you go on, you'll get happier. I'm just, it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying, I do it too. My medication, though, doesn't kick in. It never works, as you can tell. But no, you're cool, man. But 86 was 86. 84, hey, Bayonet, 84 to 87 to me. See, after 87, things started going down over. Really? Really? Yeah, the 80s was odd. The reason why people love the 80s, and I'm going to do a class, I do a class on the 60s at school, and they asked me to do the 80s. And I said, sure. I love the 80s. But I'll tell you why the 80s, I even started studying that. I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, the 80s was different because there was conservatism in America. A lot of conservatism and free market. There were a lot of changes in technology. Reagan and Gorbachev seemed to end the Cold War. 89, the Berlin Wall fell. In 85, Live Aid for the people of the famine in Ethiopia. You had the Chernobyl disaster in 86. You had so much going on. The Iran war, right? 1 million people dead. So much went on during the 80s, but the mid 80s, to me, was a little different. Early 80s, from 82 to 86, I think, you had a lot of British, Tears for Fears Culture Club, Duran Duran. The Brits ran the scene until like 87. And then you had Whitney Houston and Janet Jackson, right? But it seemed like the mid 80s, you were stuck right in the 80s. The late 80s didn't feel like the 80s. It more felt like the 90s. Oh, really? Hawaii. Wow. Very nice. Look at you, an aristocrat. Big East College basketball was St. John's never covered when I bet them. Chris Mullen used to come in. Mullen was a weed head. He used to come in to shout. He had a small girlfriend. His girlfriend at the time was like 5'2". Chris used to come in all the time. Ronnie Cycli used to come in. Wennington used to come in. A lot of St. John's guys came in too. Hair metal was brutal. Yeah. We didn't have that at Shout. It was a 50s, 60s club. What we had was on Thursday nights, there was cocktail hour. 5 o'clock, Shout opened. For $5, you got in. There was a carving board, and you had all these tables set up, like All State, Rich Nick's, Jewish singles. I used to go to the Concord singles weekends all the time in the 80s. Tables with stuff, carving board, cheeses, and stuff like that, and music. And then they'd clear you out at 8:30, and then Shout would open at 9:30 or 10 o'clock again after they cleared everything out. I remember it was $10, I think, to get in Shout. I never paid, but I remember that. And I'm ready. AIDS. When I went back 25 years later for the bouncers got together and found out a few people died of AIDS that were in Shout. You got to remember, Shout had the bouncers, and then they had the theatrical people, the people that danced on stage, some of the waiters and waitresses. There were two factions there, security, and my friend Jeff managed security, and then you had the manager of Shout, which was a lot of the dancers and gay. Oh, you didn't? What? Say. Yeah, say. Paul McCartney always positioned himself with the hot artist. He did that with Stevie Wonder, with Ebony and Ivory. Paul always knew how to position himself with people that were hot at the time to keep himself relevant. McCartney was good at that. That wasn't as bad as Ebony and Ivory. Yeah, but wasn't that the I think yeah, it was brutal. And just for Brooklyn, someone better send me $1 because I'm losing all my money to give you this.
Mac and Jack Wonder Potion, guaranteed to give you unbelievable power. Yes, my friends, it can give you the strength of a raging bull.
I'll try one.
Here's a young gentleman. Like to try one. Yes, sir. Yeah. Drink it up.
Well, he went commercial in the 80s.
Let me help you with that, my friend.
Everything was commercial in the 80s, Brooklyn.
Try it.
He did that press to play. That Brooklyn, that's funny.
Woo!
Paul looked good there, though.
Sir?
What was he, about 44 there? And Michael still was black.
Step right up. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, gather round. Let me tell you all about the Mac and Jack Wonder Potion. Guaranteed to give you unbelievable power.
Say what you want, but don't play games with my affection.
So, yeah. And then there were other things that you had to deal with. I will show you something that you may like. You may even say this was pretty cool, Brooklyn. I have to tell you, I think this is brilliant. You honestly tell me if you don't think this is really good. I think this is pretty good. And before we know it, it'll be here. I didn't necessarily like Pam, don't get me wrong, but I thought this was a really
Last Christmas, I gave you my heart.
in every hair.
The very next day, you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special. heart, but the very next day you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to someone special, special.
Let's not define the 80s.
I was a shoulder to cry on, a face on a lover with a
If anything defines the 80s, it was that. George Michael, yeah, the sports machine is the George Michael you like, Brooklyn. The 80s was fun. The 80s was fun. Tim Leary. I was in Chicago for his debut in Chicago when they had to pull him. He hurt his arm. I was in Chicago that game. It was in April. Now, I will give you something that everyone loved. And if you didn't love this, I don't know what you were thinking.
Super party animal. His name is Buzz McKenzie. When the sun shines bright on a cold Bud night, he's in a party frenzy.
He's Spuds McKenzie, the posh pooch of pop culture.
You can't get past it. Spuds McKenzie, Sugar Ray versus Hagler. Bud was the man. Yeah. I'll tell you. I feel like building a fucking DeLorean right now. We're talking about the 80s. But it was Hubie Brooks. Hubie! Oh, to play by Hubie. Remember Bob Murphy? Bob Murphy, I think he owned Hubie Brooks. Yeah, Brooklyn, every Christmas. But it is a decent song, though. That is a decent song. It really is. It's good. And I look at the Mets. Look at the movies. 85 it might have been, About Last Night. That depicted dating in the 80s perfectly with Rob Lowe and Demi. In the 80s, I saw it shout. Women were now getting good jobs. Who was a paralegal? Who was in nursing school? They didn't want to get serious with guys. They had things to do. They were finally making money. It was almost the opposite. Where, remember back in the day, trying to pin down the eligible bachelor? No more. Now the women were on their own doing their thing. I saw a big change in that at Shout, where women were now, guys were chasing after them to get serious. I saw that. Eddie Murphy Raw, yeah. Eddie Murphy Raw was incredible. It was raw. He was the guy. You had Moscow on the Hudson. But Eddie Murphy was everywhere.
Drunk, go to the club and start fighting. I had a fight with an Italian dude. Right after around time Rocky came out. Italian, white people, period. Y'all go crazy after y'all see a Rocky movie because y'all believe that shit. Because the movies are so emotional and so real. You sit there and go like, hey, this is real. Yeah, and Stallone have y'all white people pumped, especially Italians. After Italians see Rocky, they come out the movie theater, they be like, Italians are funny people because they act like niggas. It's real funny. They do. They hold their dick more than us to be standing around with it. Get the fuck out of here. It's right here, all right? What? Hey, fuck you, all right? Everything is a question, too. Hey, what am I, an asshole? What am I, a fucking jerk? Get the fuck out of here. It's right here, all right?
Eddie Murphy was the man back then. Now, when I was bouncing at Shout, Eddie Murphy used to come to China Club I'd do a China club once in a while, and Eddie would come there with Charlie. Eddie had a house right over the George Washington Bridge. I don't know if it was Hastings on the Hudson, wherever his big house was. And they used to go back and forth with girls like every 3 hours. Charlie Murphy would be coming back and forth. Charlie was a very nice guy, Charlie Murphy. Oh, yeah, in the 70s, the way we were in 73, you had Chinatown, you had The Exorcist, Dog Day Afternoon, The Godfather 2, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Network, Saturday Night Fever, so many. Taxi Driver in 76. Hey, Rock. See, I said hello to you. I didn't mean not to say hello to you, Rock. You know that. Fort Apache. Absolutely. French Connection in 71. Yeah. You know why? Because you had so many different genres. All My Children. All My Children. I remember in the 70s, and I'm going to admit it, I don't care. I used to watch with my mother All My Children. If you remember All My Children in the early 70s, Susan Lucci was having an affair with her mother's boyfriend. Do you remember? The guy's name was Bill. And Susan Lucci was screwing around with her mother's boyfriend. See if you remember that. She was probably 19 or 20, Lucci. So, yeah, Luke went from like a sex predator to mayor, didn't he? Like that was the thing about soap operas. You were in jail for murdering a small country, and then you were the president 6 months later. I never got it. It was crazy. Remember, they made that marriage was bigger than Diane and Charles. About 87, Amy Fisher and Joey Buttafuoco. My friend knew him. He owned the collision place out in the island. My friend knew him. He wasn't a bad guy. I think it was 87. But yeah, a lot went on in the 80s. William, it's going to be an interesting Mets game. It really will. I'm telling you, the Mets are going to go on a streak. Just to annoy us. So 3:05. I should just about be able, I have a party tonight, but I should be able to at least 15 to 20 minutes. Live Aid. Live Aid was great. Oh my God, the ghost of Mrs. Muir. Speed Racer. I remember Speed Racer. It was from Japan. That was a Japanese cartoon, Speed Racer. I love that. He used to go up the wall, remember? The car would go up the wall from under the water. I remember he had a sister. Speed Racer was good. U2 was great. Queen stole the show, 22 or 23 minutes. They weren't even supposed to play. They just got back together. Freddie was in bad shape. That was incredible. Just incredible. You know, you look at Queen and Stadium Rock. Just incredible. Right? When he got everyone going Radio Gaga, everybody went nuts. He was unbelievable.
All we hear is Radio Gaga, Radio
80,000 people.
Radio Gaga. All we hear is Radio Gaga, Radio Boo, Radio Gaga. All we hear is Radio Gaga, Radio Gaga.
Incredible. You just feel it. You feel it. Land of Confusion was great. Yeah, man, it's brilliant. They were unbelievable. Hey, Joe. I think Francisco Lindor's wife shot JR. Yeah, that you're Brooklyn, just seeing that like that, and it was incredible. Like watching it here, I kind of felt it. It was incredible. Miami Vice, absolutely. Great stuff. I loved Moonlighting. Moonlighting was amazing. If you didn't get into Moonlighting, that was so 80s also. Just incredible.
Some walk by night, some by day. Nothing could change you, set and sure away. There is the sun and moon, they sing their own sweet. Watch them when dawn is through, sharing one space.
Can't get better than that. Before, De Niro was a human being. No, without Glenn Fry. I love Glenn Fry. You know what my favorite Glenn Fry tune is? Solo, because he wasn't as popular solo as Don Henley was. This was my favorite.
I got sick of my job, sick of my wife, sick of my future and sick of my life. Packed up my car and I got some gas. Told everybody they could kiss my ass. I'm going to party town. Yeah, yeah. I want to party down. Yeah, yeah. I want to have some fun. I want to fool around. I'm going to party town. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. It doesn't really matter when.
Couldn't forget this one, 1987. Everything in 87. There was so much in the 80s. Smuggler's Blues was great. Smuggler's Blues, the thing about that song is you actually felt like you were in the video. And the video was great. it showed you Glenn Fry. It was Glenn Fry. It was his Eagles persona of being the cool kind of like the non-California Michigan guy.
Y'all set?
He's actually a good actor too, Glenn Fry. Give you his live performance playing also.
There's trouble on the street tonight, I can feel it in my bones. I had a premonition that he should not go alone. I knew the gun was loaded, but I didn't think he'd kill. Everything exploded and the blood began to spill. So baby, here's your ticket.
Yeah. Pee Wee Herman. Pee Wee Herman was great. There was just so much of the 80s. You know, there was so many things that defined the 80s. You know, it just, I'll give you, this isn't really looked at as a big time 80s thing, but it is. I know you remember this. You definitely remember this. This defined the 80s as well.
Why?
You can't come up with the front money. You're not for real.
To Live and Die in LA. Great movie. That blonde was gorgeous. That blonde was in Once Upon a Time in America. That was the girl they shot in the bed, De Niro's girlfriend. Really, Joe? Mayor Koch? How am I doing? Oh, Heartache Tonight. Great, great song. That is one of the, to me, that was the best Glenn Fry song that he sang. I always thought that was great. And then his son Deacon did it when he went into the Eagles. But Glenn Fry was great. Glenn Fry was a good actor too. Glenn Fry could have been a really good actor. I thought he could have been. I saw that When Hell Freezes Over tour in '94 in the Meadowlands.
Somebody's gonna hurt someone before the night is through. Somebody's gonna come undone.
He's a good guitarist
There's
too.
nothing we can do.
Pretty underrated. No one ever talks about him.
Everybody wants to touch somebody. If it takes all night, everybody wants to take a little chance. Make it come out right. Gonna be a heartache tonight.
I lost all my advertising, all my money on this show because I love you guys that much. Zeppelin and Shea, play which one? They were a great band. I loved during that concert, the Hell Freezes Over tour. It was born on 4th of July weekend. I was working at a camp as a head counselor. 4th of July weekend. Absolutely right. FAM was born. Joe Franklin. Mandami needs to be taken out. At this point, I'd settle anyway to get him out. Let me prepare for the Met post game. I'll probably come in around the 7th inning or 8th inning to hang out with you guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. Of course, it's an honor. The New York Mets. We played some 80s stuff to get us in the mood for watching a team that is so unlike the 86 Mets. But that's okay. It was 40 years ago. Who cares? We're still here. That's what counts. I'll see you guys later. Thanks, man.